The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are.
I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is.
Don't think, feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Nick,
yes, my brother.
welcome back to this spectacular episode of Digital Communion. I have a question for you today that it's been on my mind for a while. It's the most important question.
Uh-huh.
It's the only question that I haven't asked you in the time that we've known each other.
Oh, Jesus, here we go.
And I'm going to ask you right now. It's also the simplest question. And that question is, who are you?
Wow. Strange that you asked me that question because I read a book several months ago by a spiritual guru, and he said that asking that question repeatedly and constantly is the path to enlightenment. Because if you keep asking it all the time, during all your waking moments, you ask, who am I? Who is this? Who's inside there talking to me? You are ultimately supposed to realize that you are just a consciousness. And something that's become exceptionally clear to me, I'm sure you of all people understand this, is that all a human being really is a collection of neuroses and beliefs and basically a bundle of psychosis. That's all we really are. Except for those who reach enlightenment. I don't know if you've seen it with yourself, but I watch my mind, dude. It's this collection of patterns. It's just a collection of it's a mechanism of responses that just, I find myself telling these people the same stories, and I get bored with myself. I'm like, this is just some tape recording. Do you know what I mean? Or like I'll be walking down the street and I'll see something, and that little voice in my mind will start making that judgment on it, or will start analyzing it and classifying it and stereotyping it, and I'll realize that if that's who I am, fuck, it's boring, dude. I don't want to be that. Like, so to answer your question, I would like to think I'm just a consciousness experiencing itself through this, as Joe Rogan says, meat suit. And I think it's quite a scary realization, but also ultimately liberating. It's like, all these stories you tell yourself and you tell the world about who you are, it's bullshit, dude. It's all bullshit. Like when you say, I am Nick, or I am a jiu-jitsu instructor, or I am Thomas, I'm a personal trainer, I'm an artist. These are all just labels that you're giving yourself that usually refer to something that took place in the past anyway. It's got nothing to do with the present moment. Like, you're not an artist unless you're sitting painting or drawing right that very second. The same way I'm not a jiu-jitsu teacher unless I'm literally teaching jiu-jitsu as I'm saying that. Otherwise, it's all just part of the past, right? It's just, it has no bearing on reality, or no resemblance to reality.
That's awesome. Great answer.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. I wish
Great answer.
It was mine, but it came from a man much wiser than me.
So it was going to be a question in 3 parts, right? Like, first of all, who do you think you are? Secondly, who are you? And then finally, who do you aspire to be, and what still needs to happen for you to become the person you would, aspire to be in life?
Mm-hmm. So I guess the third part is the only part that we didn't really address.
Right.
Dude, for me, the whole thing, my total focus now with my own personal development is, I want to get rid of the voice in my head. And I'm not talking about the voice that's telling me to drown kittens or anything like that. I just mean that constant monologue, that constant chattering voice. Something I was saying to a close friend of mine the other day is that I've taken specific note of this, and it's happened so many times now that I'm pretty certain that it's a pattern and that what I'm about to say is accurate. And that is, you notice how when something bothers you in life, right? Like let's say it's a relationship issue with someone, or someone's done something, maybe someone cut you off in traffic, or you're having an argument with your girlfriend or something, whatever it may be, and you start feeling that. Very often, I would say that the emotion is indignation. You start feeling someone's wronged you, or you start. I even find myself talking out loud. I'll be in my bathroom and I'll be like, "Oh fuck, he always does that. This dude always does that," or like. And I've noticed that almost always, in fact, without exception, when I act from that position or from that state, when I do anything, whether it is respond to the person that I feel has wronged me, or try to create something, or anything, it invariably ends in either disaster or low quality work or poor energy being put out there, right? And not only that, I also find that ultimately, when I do engage with that person, I realized that little story that was playing in my head was completely wrong. It was so far from reality as to be ridiculous. It's like I'll be thinking he does this, and that, and I'll have this litany of complaints against him, and then we'll sit down and talk, and he'll address every one of them. And very often the case is that I realize I was the one being the dick, and I was the one that actually did something.
Right.
And so I realized that voice in my mind is very often not my friend, dude. It's very often working against me. And I find that kind of disturbing, but also it gives me that focus, as I mentioned, which is to answer your question, to become the person that I want to be. It's the person that isn't responding to that voice and ultimately responding to something deeper and more accurate and that provides more clarity than that voice. Does that make sense?
It does. And how do you suppose you'll go about making that happen? Is that something that you foresee meditation being a huge aspect of mitigating that,
100%,
nasty voice?
100%. And there's definitely a correlation between how much meditation I'm doing and how prominent that voice is. No doubt about it. So I know, I realize, man, I've just got to meditate more. That Buddhist expression, which is, I think you should meditate 30 minutes a day, except if you're too busy, then you should meditate for an hour.
I always love that one. Every
amazing.
time you say that, that makes me so happy. I'm like, yes.
So
it's great.
It's time for the classic digital communion turnaround. I'm going to have to ask you, who are you, Thomas?
Oh no, I was lying. I actually haven't thought about this at all. You're putting me on the spot. You gave a really good answer, and when I was thinking hard about it, I actually wrote it down, and I considered like reading this paragraph that I wrote, but that might be a bit over the top. Maybe I'll just tell you. I know that I'm a person who's enamored with the human experience, and even when it feels like it's, landing squarely on my head, I still am like, yeah, but it's fucking amazing. And I hope that never goes away, which we've sort of alluded to in past discussions. Like, that's probably one of the biggest things that I fear, is not being enamored with the gift of life. But I'm someone who am I? I'm someone who loves being alive, who is pretty confident that I'm just part of everything else, the fabric that everyone else is, no matter how much I, like to be proud of my own, I don't know, achievements or whatever, successes. We're all connected, and I always come back to that. And I'm hell bent on improving the things that I can. That's the essence of who I am, and I feel like I have a lot of love to give, and I don't always know how to express it, so I'm working on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I focus on doing good things and being a good person, I know it's sort of a cliche, but like there have been many times when I haven't focused on being a good person and doing good things. And when I do, it just sort of, you know, reverberates through the rest of my life. And really being proactive about that is kind of who I strive to be.
Can you give me an example of a time in your life when you weren't focused on being a good person and doing good things?
Yeah, I would say like my 20s, a decade of my life where I was extremely self-serving. I didn't care who I hurt along the way. I wanted to get mine, you know. I mean, I think I was still a good person deep down. I didn't go out of my way to maliciously hurt anyone. I just didn't mm, maybe consider the consequences. Like you could really hurt people when you betray their trust and feelings, as I'm sure you know.
Hmm.
And I just was like, fuck it. I was inebriated, you know, a majority of that time
Hmm.
anyway.
Hmm.
And it's just such destructive behavior. I don't think that is what somebody who's really confident in what they're capable of doing and can contribute. I don't think that's apt behavior. You wouldn't, you know, try to erase your mind every single night if you had a really good plan for how you're going to, you know, contribute to the world.
That's an amazing point. That's an
And I
amazing
did,
point.
and dude, I did it all day and night. You know what I mean? So is it bad? Like, was I a bad person? No, but I just wasn't focused on doing the best that I could, which I think is probably our natural state is probably to be the best that we possibly can be.
So I have two things to say on that. The first is, in the words of Doug Stanhope, who I've been listening to a lot lately, your sins are the most interesting thing about you, right? And it's, I don't know if this is a rationalization or not, but I was the same. And to a large extent, I'm still the same. He's a selfish motherfucker, right? Like, it's all about Nick and what can Nick get and what can Nick do. And again, deep down, I felt I was still a good person and I would never really do anything too terrible. You know, it was usually stuff related to women. Um, but you know, I think it's the natural trajectory of a human being is like you've got to go through that you've got to go through that selfish phase to get to the phase where you can give back and just you have to acquire resources and a network and go and test your strengths and you have to be a bit selfish, especially like when you're young. You have to, dude. Otherwise, I mean, who wants to be the boring person that played by all the rules and never stepped on anyone's toes and treaded around everything carefully and fuck, dude, like the world has enough boring people, you know. And I think that the fact that like guys like us have gone through that actually makes us better. And when I say better, I mean better to those around us. And um, yeah, uh, it's interesting that we both walked that same path, man. Um,
I would agree with that. And somebody I was talking to a really interesting woman the other day, one of my new clients, and she was saying, "Well, you know, in order to treat the people that you love well around you now, you had to go through you had to go trial by fire, basically. You know,
mhm.
you had to feel exactly what it's like to just snap somebody in half emotionally. And when you do that, you're just not as apt to hurt somebody again like that, you
Well, I
know?
think more
Or if it,
importantly, you need to feel what it's like to be snapped in half
yeah,
emotionally
and
yourself.
well said. And that has also happened. So being on the receiving end of that and the giving end, it's like, ooh, that's some tough stuff. I don't like to fuck around with
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's some
agreed.
heavy emotional debris, cosmic debris, as Frank Zappa would say.
Yeah, it's my something else I wanted to talk to you about today is I'm realizing it's interesting, Thomas. Like at the risk of sounding like self-aggrandizing, um, I am noticing myself become more emotionally sophisticated. Like I'm realizing, I'm seeing, I'm becoming much more aware of the subtlety of emotions and how they affect me. And in this book that I keep referring to over and over again, I don't know if you've read it yet, Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender. I mean, it's not just it's a premise that's not just featured in this book, but I've read several different texts that are saying basically emotions are just energy trapped in the body, right? And that thought forms are just the manifestation of this trapped energy. So if you start thinking about rage or murder or death or whatever, it's those thought forms have been triggered and created by some negative energy that's trapped in your body. Or if you start feeling sad or whatever the emotion you experience is, or whatever the thoughts you experience, they are a reflection of an emotion, and an emotion is a reflection of this trapped energy. So if you follow it down, like whenever you feel any particular way, if you just follow that down, eventually you find a root. And that root is usually, like I found, like a traumatic childhood memory. Or
Wow.
And then what happens is that it's the weirdest thing. I was just talking to my girlfriend about it earlier. Like I find, because I'm a big believer that everything is stored in your body, right? Like all trauma, your tissues like remember it. And I really believe that it even gets passed on into your DNA. I think it's that intense. Like, so for example, yesterday I'm here in Thailand, so I went and had this fantastic 2-hour deep tissue massage. And
wow.
I went and did 90 minutes of yoga in my room. And then I did 30 minutes of meditation, right? And this morning when I woke up, I walked out of my apartment and I had this memory of this really fucking traumatic childhood thing that happened to me, dude. It was a fight that I got into with an older kid, this terrible fucking memory. And it bubbled up and I could feel the emotion like just sitting in me. And I was like, oh shit, okay. During all that body work, all the massage and the yoga and the meditation, I unlocked something. I unlocked this trauma. And now it's come to the surface to be dealt with. Like, and if I don't deal with it now, if I don't process it now, and I just shove it back down, then it's going to manifest in my life in a bunch of different ways. Like it's going to manifest in my relationships and my work and everything like that. And I realized that, you've got to deal with these things. You have to deal with them, or else they're gonna deal with you. Like there's no pushing it under the carpet is temporary. Does any of the stuff I'm saying make sense? Have you experienced anything like this?
Yeah, but I want to know how you're gonna deal. How did you deal with it?
So there's actually a formula in that book, Path of Letting Go. And the first thing is to feel the emotion in its entirety. So it's not to try and resist it or shove it away or alter it. You just feel it in its entirety, and then realize that it's tied to the survival instinct or the survival mechanism. Like that's what emotions are designed for. They're designed to ensure your survival, your physical survival on this planet. That's why what fear does is it leads you away from pain and potential trauma and life-threatening situations, and pleasure leads you towards things that help you survive and replicate, whether it be, you know what I'm talking about, sex or whatever, good food or whatever it is. So once you've identified it and felt it, you actually thank that emotion. You say, okay, I realize this is just part of the survival instinct, which means I work, I'm functional. Like it's a good thing that I have these emotions or these responses to trauma, because that means my body was doing its job. It was trying to protect me and ensure my survivability or ensure my survival. And then the final, so you identify it and then you thank it, right? So you say thank you to that energy for what it was doing. And then the final step is to let it go. And so you just go through that process and repeat it whenever things come up. And I find it's really helped me a lot, bud.
Now, can you do maybe the ultra hyper fast version by taking ayahuasca?
I love the way your mind works, bro, because I'm always looking for the shortcuts too.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds like work. Give me the fast one. I know ayahuasca is serious work too. but it does. It's a similar mechanism, correct? Of just like
Dude.
healing and expelling.
100%. It's a ayahuasca allows you to tap into that on a much deeper level, and process larger volume, because all energy is information, right? This is something else I'm realizing as well. It's just information, like an emotion, a thought, a vibration. It's just at its most base form. It's information. It's like it's knowledge. It's like it's code. And what ayahuasca allows you to do, I think, is just process more of that information more rapidly, which allows you to do deeper work more quickly. Everybody there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's you just skipped out on me real fast.
Yeah, I think that thought just broke the internet, bro.
And that note, just hit our time limit, Nick. You just broke my phone. You broke the internet, and it was right at the 20-minute mark.
So guys, we really do appreciate the feedback you guys give us. Most importantly, the reviews. So if you could leave a review for us on iTunes, that would be great. And also, we do respond to all the comments that you guys post to any of the shows on digitalcommunion.com. We really enjoy engaging with you guys, the people who listen to us, and the people who support us. So, yeah, just go onto the site and leave a comment if you really enjoyed the show, and we'll reply.
And also, if you watch us on YouTube, you could see how handsome Nick is and his incredible fashion sense. So don't miss it.
Only a
See you
guy
next time.
with perfectly coiffed hair could say that.